Oh, do I have to clap too?
Yeah. Just
Okay.
give me a good one.
Okay, I can give you a good one, dude.
There it is, folks.
Was that good?
That was it right there.
Should I see if I can clip the Zoom F6?
I don't think you'll be able to, but
Listen, cover your ears, listener.
woo! Oh god. I think you just blew my ears, not the
That
Zoom.
It was more piercing than the last one.
It was.
I gave it the extra 20% for this one. Did I get anywhere close to it?
No, I don't think so. And if
Dang
you did, I
it.
could probably bring it down.
All right,
so
well,
you'll
it's
have to listen to it and
well
hear,
worth
but-
the money for you then.
Yeah. I didn't just happen to spend an arm and a leg on it. So
That's amazing, dude.
cool. Well, Jimmy,
That's me.
dude, what the heck? Welcome to
Wild, right?
Welcome to the Coffee Roaster Warm Sessions podcast. This feels
thank you,
surreal.
man. Me too. Me too. I've listened to so many episodes and I'm like, man, when will be the day that I'm on that side of the camera?
Dude, oh man, this was like crazy. Like I went to a cafe today to meet up with a friend, and I'm like, who's this guy with a camera? Nobody shoots with cameras in public in Bellingham. Nobody does. So when I saw that, I was like, he's not a local for sure.
Which I should preface, okay? I sent Mark a video. I was like, I DM'd him and I said, hey, I'm going to send Mark a video because I just found out that like him and his brother were here in Bellingham. And so I was like, okay, I'm sending him a DM and I'm going to send him a video and say, dude, I'm here. We should meet up. So today when we met up, in my mind, on my video,
Yeah.
I go, no way, no you didn't, because in my mind you surprised me. In my mind you showed up like, hey Jimmy, like
Yeah.
I watched your video and I'm here to surprise you.
And I actually didn't.
That's the crazy thing.
I never watched the video.
Which I guess is selfish thinking of me to be like, Mark is here just for me.
No, I mean, I probably, if I watched the video, I would be there for you. But no, like, I like saw you like filming around and I was like, wait a second, he looks really familiar. Oh my gosh. And then I was like, I remember getting a notification of your DM and I was like, no way, this can't be the case. I quickly popped it open. I'm watching the video as you're like downstairs taking videos in the cafe. I'm like, oh my gosh, it really is him.
So
He sent me this
embarrassing.
message last night.
Bro, you should have filmed me. Like, what is this guy doing? Influencer in the wild? Because I know I was out there with my camera like this, like filming
Yeah,
myself.
disrupting poor like innocent coffee drinkers.
TikTok dancing.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well,
I'm so glad, man.
Yeah, I'm pumped. Thank you so much. Also spontaneously, I was like, Jim, you want to be on the pod? And you're like, heck yeah.
Yeah,
So,
dude.
thank you.
Of course, man. Of course. I'm so excited. So now I can ask, what are we drinking today, Mark?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, before I tell you, let's just pour some
Batchy?
some batchy. Let's go. Let's go.
I'm drinking out of Mark's favorite mug here,
That's true.
which I'm honored.
The Hasami.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh geez, that cooled down quite a bit.
Yeah. Were we
Wow.
talking too much beforehand? Is that what happened?
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah.
Listener, I should also preface that I had a cough drop because I've been talking a lot today. And so my throat was like, Jimmy, man, you need to stop talking. But I was like, no, shut up, throat. I need to go hang out with Mark and be on the podcast.
Yeah.
So you will make it through this.
Look-
And so
look-
yeah.
Dude, look at you going out on a limb, like putting your life at risk just to be on the pod.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I'm actually, I don't know if I can say this, but I'm recording an episode for my podcast that I am launching that was inspired by listening to your podcast, because you have to listen to the episode that says why you should launch your own podcast. Is that what it's titled?
I don't know.
Something like
Something
that.
like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy inspirational,
Dude, that's
man.
crazy.
So I was inspired by you, and
Yeah.
this is the first podcast I've ever been on and I've ever wanted to be on, because in my mind I was like, I'm either going to be on my own podcast, or the only other one that I want to be on before my own podcast is the Mirror.
Well,
Coffee warm-up session.
now you can just go launch your podcast now. Heck yeah.
So tomorrow's the day.
Dude,
Tomorrow's
incredible.
that I'm recording another episode, which I'm excited for.
That's lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we get, we'll circle back to that because I want to ask you a few more questions about that. But
no worries.
What do you think about the coffee? What are your initial thoughts?
Here's the truth. I'm hoping it doesn't keep me up too much later, but I really enjoy.
It is kind of late.
I know, but to be honest with you, caffeine has just kind of been going straight through me, and I haven't even been feeling it. So.
Wow.
Okay, let's see. It's nice and juicy.
Okay.
I like it a lot.
Okay.
I don't really know what much more to say. I know my handle is Jimmy The Barista, but if you don't know this, coffee is one of those things that, like, if I like it, I like it, and if I don't, I don't. I can tell you that I really like this, but I couldn't tell you what I'm, like, distinctly picking out of this. So what?
Lovely.
What am I supposed to be picking out of this?
Okay, so I wish it was much warmer. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Because it's cooled down a lot, but personally, I've had this coffee so many times, but picking up, like, there's some florals, some, like, tea.
Dang, I was gonna say florals.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Florals, tea. So you know what you're talking about.
Trust your
What
gut,
the
Jimmy.
heck,
Trust
dude?
your gut.
Go with your intuition.
Well, then
dude.
I thought I was gonna sound like an idiot. You're gonna be like, okay, florals.
That's a chocolatey
Okay,
coffee.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Ah, dang it.
This is like florals, tea, like maybe like Earl Grey, but not the bitterness of it.
Yes.
And then there's like some lemon in there, almost like. Have you ever put lemon in your tea? No.
Yeah.
Is that a weird thing to do?
Have I done that? I don't know. Actually, maybe it is a weird thing to do. Iced tea.
Okay,
I've done it in iced tea.
Weird. Okay,
No, I'm not calling you weird.
I just exposed myself.
No, I'm not calling you weird. I do it all the time, Mark. I put lemon in every single tea I have.
Love
Well,
it.
I had tea last night, and I was like, did I put lemon in it? I didn't put lemon in it.
Yeah. Okay, never mind. So this is florals, tea, like little bit of like little fruit, just a very bit, and then some lemon. So this is an Ethiopian washed.
Okay.
One of our coffees. So
No way.
yeah.
Oh, I really like it. So I have kind of like, not that I have beef with Ethiopians. Uh-oh.
Oh, sorry. That was a cough. That was not me.
I really got
Got your
under
comment.
Mark's skin with that one.
Yeah.
No, so
You did say that in a recent video.
I did, yeah. So I think in the specialty coffee world now, don't get me wrong, I definitely think that Ethiopians are special. And I definitely think, I know that for myself, when I first started to get into specialty coffee, Ethiopians were kind of like the thing that like got me super excited. And I was like, whoa, this is super,
Yes.
the typical flavor notes, blueberry.
Yes.
But over time,
Yeah.
I have fallen in love with Central and South Americans so much because I feel like, especially like the funky processes or even just like a natural,
Yes.
it just like smacks me in the face with fruitiness. And I just like, I love it. I love it so much. And it's like different from an Ethiopian because there are like delicate parts to them, and there are tea likes, and there are, and I have a tough time dialing them in. Like I can, for whatever reason, get a Colombian dialed like super simply, but I can get Ethiopians from different roasters and have such a tough time because it's like a very dense bean or it's like this or that, and I'm just like, I can't get out like what I want to get out.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Oh, of course. They're kind of all over the place. Like, again, you can get multiple Ethiopians and it's like, whoa, I'm changing the grind size quite a bit, where Colombians usually, and like Guatemalans, Central Americans, it's honestly, most of them sit in a nice place. And I personally, right now, probably my favorite coffees of all of last year were all probably all Colombians.
Yeah.
I'm a huge, that was not the case. I was a huge African fan.
Really?
And then now I've just like nothing like a good Central or South American.
Do you find yourself like with Mirror leaning towards, when you purchase coffees, leaning towards a like, I don't know how that side of it works.
That's a good question. Yeah, so kind of. We the bulk of our coffee menu all of last year was probably like 75% like Centrals and South Americans. I don't know why. Maybe, and of course, like, I can't quite maybe put a finger on it, but when I am cupping, I'm not going to lie, my preference and my bias does pour into it. You know, like, I'm not just like objectively cupping them. So if I'm leaning towards liking a Colombian coffee, I'm probably going to lean towards, you know, pushing Sergi to, you know, buy more Colombian coffees. So,
does he lean towards a preference?
To be honest, I don't know. I think he has mentioned that he's been loving Colombian coffees a lot. So that makes it, you know, even more challenging when we're both kind of biased towards it. But yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I was so surprised when you said this is your Ethiopian, because typically for me, I'm like, Ethiopians are fine, but I really like this. Yeah. And I like how delicate it is. I like the florals and I like the teeness. And for me right now, I usually drink tea at night. Like I'm a pretty avid tea drinker when it's like evening to like wind down and stuff.
Cool. Yeah.
So this kind of reminds me of that. So I like it.
Lovely.
Thank you, man. Lovely. I appreciate it. I'm happy to have a cup with you.
That's excellent.
Yeah, dude.
It's truly exciting to have you on the podcast. But that being said, so we both kind of, Mir started early 2020. And then you kind of started your content stuff around the same time. And so we both kind of got connected early on in both of our, you know, journeys of whatever you call it, like our brands or whatever. So that was like a great, like, little touch point that has always felt personal to both Sergi and I. And we absolutely love your content. So if anybody's listening to this, and if you're not following Jimmy the Barista, I have no idea who you're following then. Go follow Jimmy on, like, Jimmy the Barista on Instagram, YouTube. He has some really solid stuff. But that being said, what even got you into creating stuff on Instagram, now YouTube? What was kind of the thought process behind that?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, first of all. I'm super grateful for that. And yeah, it's really surreal to be able to, like, meet you. Like, Mark was laughing because he was like, why do I feel like you're more excited to meet me than I, like, because Mark was super excited whenever I was there. But then I was like, Mark, like, so stoked out of my mind. Because it is like I don't know. It's like a marker in my life. Like, I remember in 2020, I hadn't worked in coffee in a few years, and obviously we went into the lockdown, and I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I miss coffee so much. And at that point, I had never had, like, a machine at the house. Right. I think the most I had was like a V60 or something. Right. Excuse me. But I was like, babe, is there any chance that I can invest in a machine? And I remember telling her specifically, and I will make an Instagram so that I can post some content. And who knows, maybe someday I'll be able to get free coffee. Yeah. And then that would make it pay for itself in the long term. Like, nice. That really was my reasoning, because obviously it's always hard to pull the trigger on something like an espresso machine. Yeah. Whether you're looking at like a 600 or an 800 or whatever, or more than that. Right. It's always just kind of like, what? We're going to buy one of those? And so I was like, I will try, you know? And at that point, I knew nothing about, like, content. Reels weren't a thing, obviously. My wife is a photographer. And so I was like, well, if anything, you could take the pictures. Yeah. I can write the captions, and I can talk about the things that I really enjoy. Right. So basically, I, like, decided to start Jimmy the Barista. And at the time, it was just pictures and captions. And my wife was doing, I say she's Jimmy the Barista because she was taking all the pictures and doing everything. Oh, nice. And you know, being a creative, how much work goes into you know, editing photos and
100%.
And when I ask, like, somebody do that for me, it's like, okay, Jimmy, like you need another picture for today.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know how to use a camera. So I remember being like,
So
okay,
you're saying we should have your wife on the podcast,
you really
not
should.
you.
She's Jimmy the
Like,
Barista. Yeah. So
that's good.
I remember being like, okay, Jimmy, you got to pull your weight, man. You got to like figure something out.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to learn video because my wife doesn't know video.
Yeah.
So I grabbed her camera, and the first thing I decided to learn was Premiere and not learn how to shoot on a camera.
Nice.
And so I learned about Premiere Pro for some reason, but not about shooting video. And so I shot video like I was taking a picture. And listener, if you've never shot video before, if you don't know like the differences between shooting video and photo, they are wildly different. So the way that like you're supposed to shoot photo, or that people typically shoot photo and adjust for light and all these different things, is completely different than how you should shoot video. I didn't know that. And so I was like doing things that I was breaking rules that you shouldn't break. And I was doing all these different things, and my videos sucked. And I was like, why are my videos so bad? And then I was like, oh, I should probably learn how to like use a camera. So then I really did a deep dive into like YouTube and Skillshare, tried to figure out. And then I am such a perfectionist, and I am such a like, I deep dive. Whenever I like something, I just like hit it as hard as possible. And I was like, I have to learn everything about this. So I like tried to take every single class. I tried to do every single thing.
Come on.
So that I could like learn how to be Jimmy the Barista on my own without like needing my wife to do all the different things.
For sure.
And that's kind of how it came about. So
Cool. Now being 4 years into this, which is crazy. Time just flies by.
Yeah.
Now being 4 years into this, looking back, you literally just learned a new skill from scratch. What's that journey been like all these years? Both learning how to use a camera, but then also kind of navigating social media and its ever-changing, way of being, and then also just you as a creative. And I know I'm realizing now that's a loaded question with so many different avenues.
Let me give you a 3-part answer.
But you do you. So
well, that's a great question. So little tidbit. I used to be a theater kid. Shout out all my theater kids. If you were a theater kid and you're listening, and you ever did districts or you had a troop 6817. Were you ever a theater kid?
No.
Okay, so hopefully somebody out there listened and was like, "Yeah, I'm a theater kid."
How long did you do that for?
Oh, dude, I started as like a 3rd grader or something like that. I did The King and I was like some role, and then I did it like all the way through high school. And then what a lot of people don't know is I wanted to be an actor, and so I graduated from high school and auditioned for a theater school in New York. And I got into that theater school doing musical theater and like acting, like doing a monologue and stuff.
Dude, what?
So like my dream, my alternate timeline, Jimmy, would have been like on Broadway. I don't know. I'm saying he would have, but he would have fought really hard to try and do it, because that was my dream forever and ever. So actually like camera stuff like came pretty like naturally to me in terms of like being in front of the camera, because I was always like a performer.
Yes.
So it was really natural for me to kind of think to myself, dang, did I miss out on like performer Jimmy?
Right.
And then it was like, wow, I could still kind of be performer Jimmy if I learn how to use a camera and do that kind of stuff.
Okay, this is crazy to me, because it makes sense. Like so many pieces are now just fitting in my head, because I'm like, dude, this guy just feels too natural.
Oh, dude,
like a lot of your content, like what I love is like, not only is it, I think, original and creative, but it also feels very just natural and organic.
Thank
you.
A
lot of the stuff you do, I'm like, oh no, that's just Jimmy. And that actually makes sense, because that's not anything new for you. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah,
wow.
I love that kind of stuff. So it came really naturally for me to just be like, all right, I have to, if, there was a part of me that was like, okay, I guess I'm never going to be the Broadway guy, but it was in 2020, and obviously in 2020 I feel like a lot of different people went through a lot of different circumstances, and for me it was hitting that like almost like existential crisis of like, did I miss the good part of my life?
Yeah.
Because I didn't end up going to theater school because I couldn't afford theater school. I actually ended up being homeless after graduating from high school.
No way.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm never going to do that. I like missed out of that part of my life. And during COVID and like just having time to figure that stuff out, I was talking to a few friends of mine who did end up going to theater school and who are currently working actors. And I was like, dude, I missed out. And they were like, did you know that Peter Dinklage didn't start acting until he was 40? And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, dude, you never miss your calling to do these kinds of things. So you should just like do it, like set your mind to it and do it. Like, don't sulk about it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And the thing that I felt most like confident in was like being myself, you know? So, that has always like played into my content ever since like learning how to do video.
Dude, that's insane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just learning these new little things about you, and it's like, I love stories.
Yeah.
And so when you see only kind of like one side of Jimmy, but then like us just like hanging out throughout the day, and then me hearing about some of these like interesting little quirks about you, or now it makes sense why you kind of like movies. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Like,
love. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It actually makes sense now. Like all these things are fitting together. That's very interesting. So that makes a little more sense now. Take me to where the heck did coffee come into the picture? Because did you work behind bars somewhere? You worked at
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about that.
So sorry, I'm really burpy right now. I don't know why.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I did work behind bar. So I love talking about my coffee origin story because my thought is that hopefully it'll resonate with somebody who like is friends with like potentially somebody that they would call a coffee snob and be like, whoa, okay. Because my story started with like loving Starbucks, but it was like I only liked Starbucks because the girl that I liked, who is now my wife, but I was like, oh my gosh, she's super cute. She loved coffee. And so I never drank coffee. My mom always drank mocha pot, and she would put Café Bustelo in mocha pot, and essentially it was like way too strong. So I tried like sips of it and I hated it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I hate coffee. I don't like the taste of coffee. It's too dark. It's too like all these different things. And this girl that I saw standing in line at Starbucks, I was like, oh my God, in college, I was like, oh, like I got to go like stand in line with her. And so I remember trying, she would always get like drip because she was a pre-med major.
Right.
And she always just like ordered drip, and I'd be like, can I try a sip of that? Tried it. And I was like, yep, hate coffee. I absolutely hate coffee. So, but I kept standing in line with her. And so what I would do is, so I don't look like an idiot who's just like standing in line, I would go up to the counter and I'd be like, I will have a strawberries and cream frappuccino. And that was my coffee.
Nice.
And then I ended up like slowly working my way from frappuccino to flavored latte to latte. And then we would travel to different coffee shops kind of just like whenever we would be on the road. And essentially like through trying different coffee shops with her, I fell in love with the taste of coffee. So when the time came for me to pick up a job in college, I got a job at the local coffee shop. And this was not a third wave shop at all. Like this is, I guess, what you would consider like a second wave shop where they would make me like tamp on a scale. It was like just like a weighing scale. And
oh, wow. Okay.
There was like no beauty or art or craft or love for the coffee in particular. It was mainly like flavored lattes and stuff, but it was like, this is awesome. I'm a barista.
Yeah.
And then I ended up working through, like I left that job, worked at another shop, found my way into a third wave specialty coffee shop. Then I ended up working my way up to being a manager at the third wave specialty coffee shop that I was at. And that shop was a multi-roaster. So we ended up getting an Onyx and
cool.
Elm Coffee Roasters, Three Ships Coffee Roasters, like a bunch of just like different places and different people. And I just fell in love with like all the different types of coffee that there are available. And I was like, oh my gosh. And the other thing that I loved about coffee shop culture, actually, the part that made the coffee much more intriguing was connecting with people, like connecting with regulars. That's always been my favorite part of coffee.
That's interesting. So again, we should have probably had your wife on the podcast, not you.
Yeah, she's the origin story.
She's the origin of Jimmy. She's the origin of Jimmy. Jimmy loves coffee.
Yep.
She's the origin of everything.
Yep.
So
exactly. I'm like just I'm the puppet. I'm the puppet. she's Jimmy the Barista.
That's good. Yeah. That's very interesting because I think a lot of people, for some to their detriment, I think, who are like, man, I want to start a coffee shop because I want to build community. And then a lot of people talk about literally loving coffee because of the way it brings people together. Like a big part of my, especially early days of like coffee was definitely like the flavor, me just having like a beverage that blew my mind. But it was also like the relationship that I built with the barista. It was also like the fact that when we had meetings at the school that I was staffing at, when we had meetings where it was just like a connecting point, it was like, hey, let's just go get coffee. And that was such a intimate part of the whole process of coffee. It almost became synonymous for itself. Like when I think coffee, I think people and community. And when I think, people and community, my brain drifts naturally to let's go get a coffee or let's do it around coffee, which is just interesting for me to hear from you.
Yeah, it's always been my favorite part. Yeah. So whenever I do my content, like I always look at it through that like vision. Let's actually jump there as well. So you have this coffee side to you, and then you also have this like acting, all of a sudden learning a camera, and those two things are just working together. What, now that you're, congrats, you're just broke, 20K followers, which is spectacular. Thank you.
How do you think about people and connecting with people through social media as a content creator, but more specifically like around coffee?
Yeah. Well, I always content is such a weird thing. I remember when I first started in 2020, like I said, it was mainly pictures. And so the way that you would like reach people was like through your captions and through like comments, I guess, and hashtags were pretty big. And so it's just like a totally different space.
Right.
You remember, like,
of course,
you remember what it was like to start at that time. And I remember connecting with like a few influencers that like, I was like, oh, you guys are very like communal, So like Alexander Mills was one person, Commonly Coffee, who's Tyler, Guru Caleb, like these are all guys that like I connected with that I was like, man, this is like a really cool group of people that I'm able to like build community with and aspire to kind of like be like them and what they do and like seeing how like they post, and it's all geared around like people. And so when Reels and video came around, I was like, this is kind of my chance to be most myself, and this is my chance to share my love for coffee. But I've never been, and excuse me for saying this, but I've never approached coffee content with the mindset of like, let me show what I would deem as like the pretentious side of coffee, which is like saying that there's exact ways to do things, or that if you like specialty coffee, you should be drinking this, or like, I knew like I had to draw a line in the sand. I had to draw a line in the sand for myself and saying like, okay, what kind of content creator do I want to be? And I was like, I would rather get people who are coffee drinkers, and whether that's like, I like to press a button in the morning and that gives me energy throughout the day, or I prefer convenience, or like I was like, I want to cast a wide net and be able to have content that like is almost like a gateway to specialty and is disarming for people. And they could be like, I didn't know that about coffee. Like, a lot of my first followers were like just friends that I had.
Yeah.
And were not into specialty, didn't know anything about
Right.
dialing coffee, like just that word. What does it mean to dial coffee? And so when I was posting content, they would naturally ask questions. And that's the best thing. That's all you could ever ask for if you're a coffee lover. Is like, you want people to ask you questions.
Yes.
So for me, I was like, if I can create content that makes people just ask questions and gets people curious about coffee, like specialty coffee and the specialty coffee industry, then I feel like I've done my job right. So that's the approach that I took. And that's how, in my mind, I made it more accessible to people. And I almost thought of like content as the revolving door of like regulars coming in. And if you've ever worked as a barista behind bar, you know what it's like to have your regular come in and they have their specific drink that they ask for.
Yes.
Which is like, you do it for them because they're your regular, but it's like not, it's like, I know this person. I know that they like 2 pumps of this and 2 pumps of that. And it's like, but at least I get to have them through the door and I get to like talk to them about what I love, which is coffee, or like at least just connect with them on some kind of way and give them a cup of coffee.
Yes. Dude, wow. So you touch upon a few things. Number one, I just, I love how you talked about creating content and engaging people online about coffee as a way of like them just being regulars. Because that is a very normal like coffee thing to like, that's very normal like in the coffee world. Like, people have coffee shops, people work as baristas, and they interact with regulars. And like we all know, your average beverage made at a coffee shop is not your shots of espresso, is not your pour overs. Most of them are like lattes, vanilla lattes, maybe some mochas. Like, those finer drinks that we nerd about are actually the minority of beverages that are made at not all, but most cafes, which is interesting that your take on social is actually like a mirror of the cafe space, which I think is powerful because it actually lets you serve people the way they want to be served while still providing a really beautiful product or a tasty product. Here is that analogy there. And then also it actually builds a relationship and a connection regardless of where your stance is with coffee and how nerdy maybe you can get and how much they don't really like, may not care about that as much, but you like are able to build this bridge between them.
Right.
Which I think is extremely powerful. It's so, I think that's like being super community focused and finding the people that you want to almost like take care of and provide content for. That's it. You're doing it.
It's like, thank you for saying that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think that that's been my approach, especially with the barista background.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that like if someone is listening to this, if you're listening to this and you do create content, whether that's coffee content or not coffee content, thinking through people as followers will be more detrimental to not only like the engagement on your social media page and the algorithm and stuff like that, but it'll also be detrimental and really discouraging to you, because if you start to just think of people as followers, or you start to think about like, how many followers can I get? And you're one of those people who maybe gets 1 comment, 2, 3 comments a video. Like, that's the same thing that happened whenever I first started, was like getting 1 comment, 2 comment, 3. But it was like the regular coming back into the shop and being like, oh, hey, I'm just here for a sec. And they would comment and I'd be like, I'm going to reply right back because this is amazing. This is a person who's like showing up for me. And I know this person is going to show up every single time.
Yes.
That's how it's like at a coffee shop. And you go, oh, yep, that's Bill.
Yeah.
And he like, that's just him.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because we love Bill. And, like, that's the same thing. If you don't treat social media like that, then it's going to become the most discouraging place ever.
Yeah,
so.
That is extraordinary. Like, I'm so hyped about that analogy because I've just never heard anybody talk about it that way, as treating them as just regulars who just stop by, comment, or engage. I'm gonna sleep on that and like meditate on that.
Dude,
for
oh my gosh.
post podcast. So
You're too
that's
kind to
cool.
me. I'm not
Dude.
that smart.
I think it's, to be honest, I think it's simple stuff like that they're like simple truths that people oftentimes overlook, because I think a lot of times we want like the silver bullet. We want like something out of the ordinary, but it's oftentimes like the simple things that actually lead to both, oftentimes business success, but also whether that's success as a creator or whatever it is, it's just like doing the simple things really well and just showing up every single day, giving it your best. That goes a far way. So you just simplifying that concept in a way that at least I understand really well, I'm like, God, that's incredible.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's cool because like I have people who comment on my videos, or on like my posts, and like you mentioned, I had just crossed 20K, and I will have like some people who are like, hey, I started following you at 1,000, and I remember, and I always knew you'd get here, and I'm gonna stick around till 100,000. And those are random people that I've never met before in my entire life. But to think that those are people who are like bought into seeing your success, it really is the same thing as a regular who has their favorite coffee shop, who walks in and says, I love this place. I'm sure I could get a vanilla latte somewhere else, but I love this place,
100%.
So yeah, that's kind of my approach.
Yeah.
With all of it.
Yeah. The, what I also really like is the fact that, when you can just focus in on both the simple things, but also like those individual like connections, like Bill, the regular, like you can actually start to play a really big role in someone's life from something as simple as either just serving your regular every day at a cafe or making a piece of content that you release daily or bi-daily, weekly. Like those touch points, I think actually have a lot of value in society, especially when, you're trying to give off something positive, something encouraging, something bright. Like, I think that's so beneficial to society. Like literally our tagline for Mirror is reflect what's good, is literally this concept of like, we Mirror, like the brand, but also us, who my brother and I who run Mirror, like we just want to be a reflection of good. Like whether that's you drinking coffee at home, every time you like look towards us or look at Mirror or buy anything from us, I hope you're like, damn, this is good.
Right.
Like this is good.
Right.
Like whenever we work with producers, my hope is like, they're like, man, those guys are cool. Like that, I just felt I got a taste of something good by working with them. That's where my mind went. So I'm curious, because I know we also talked about this like off the podcast.
Sure.
About like the impact of you having that close-knit community. Yeah. Real community that you can show up to every day, and the implications of that.
Yeah. Well, a little bit about me. I was raised by a single mom, and she's amazing, and she's the only reason that I am who I am. But I also inherited a lot of her tenderness, and so I'm a pretty like tender and empathetic man. And so when I like post on social media, and I promise this is going somewhere, but when I post on social media and when I interact with people, like I love being like a positive, joyful, and like tender person, because I think that sometimes like just in society as a whole, and in particular like men as a whole, it's like, oh, you like we can't just be like nice to each other, or like we can't just be like empathetic with each other, or there's just like this like kind of wall or this barrier of like oh, I don't know. I don't want to get to that point within my like emotions or something. And so for me, whenever like I comment back, or whenever like this is going to sound like crazy, but like a lot of the people who I have like constant messages with and DMs with is just like good guys who were just like encouraging each other all the time. They'll message me and be like, dude, I can't believe that you did this. Oh, you're so freaking like, I can't believe that you just had a baby. Congratulations. Like you're awesome. And then me getting to do that as well. It's like, I remember somebody said the analogy of like, I remember being discouraged at one point that like, only 3,000 people saw my post. And somebody was like, well, put 3,000 people in a room and
Yeah.
have all of them show up for you just for that. 3,000 people in one room showing up for you is a lot of people if you were to actually visualize that.
100%.
And so for me, I like now view my content like that. So if I have like 5 people who post or who comment on like my post, I'm saying thank you to all of them. I'm shaking their hand and going, thank you so much. Like, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the engagement, because like there are
100%.
so many people who are creating content and who are like trying to do things, and you thinking that what I'm making is special or unique, like means the world. And I'm going to show you how appreciative I am. I'm not going to guard that. So
100%.
yeah. So
Dude, I think that concept, whether you're listening to this and whether you own a roasting company, you're a home barista, you work at a cafe as a barista, or you own a cafe, whatever it is, and even like a content creator, dang, like this should be your sole focus at all times. This is like what makes a good content creator grow. Like this is what makes your local coffee shop stand out amidst
Totally.
the other 50. Like Bellingham has either a coffee shop or a coffee stand literally on almost every block.
totally.
Like,
yeah.
It's crazy how much coffee shops we have. But what like pushes you that extra mile is when you're like, you know, going back to like your story, when you can shake their hand and say, hey, you had like 20 other cafes to go to, but you showed up here.
Yep.
I think oh gosh, I freaking love this, because I'm like, we've had things kind of flipped around and we feel a little entitled, I think, oftentimes, where we think like, well, yeah, of course somebody's going to show up to my cafe. Like this is everything I'm doing for them and all this stuff. And it's like, no. It is like a blessing. Like they did not have to show up to your cafe at all. Mm-hmm. They don't owe you anything. Mm-hmm. You actually owe them a phenomenal experience, great customer service. You owe them the tastiest beverage that you can make every single time. Like you owe them an exceptional experience, whatever that looks like, and whatever they're looking for. And also from like, again, like from a cafe or even from a content standpoint, like, you know how many pieces of content out there that people can watch?
Totally.
Nobody has to watch your videos, your photos.
Right.
And the fact that somebody showed up and is like, hey, I love this, or even better, like sent you a DM, like, oh my gosh, I love this. Like, this was hilarious.
Or shared your work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I think, yeah, we've like all this has gotten so inflated where we think that that's like a given. And it's like, no. I think you should actually be super sensitive to that and go out of your way to be like, thank you.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I just like, and thinking of it from that perspective too, it's like, imagine being a roastery. Imagine being yourself in 2020. You have just a few followers. You just started. You're just catching your footing, and you have somebody share the word about you. How special is that? It's like, oh my gosh, that is so valuable that people are talking about the work that I'm doing and sharing it with the people that they know, because then now all of a sudden as a business owner, and if you're a content creator or if you're a business owner, if you're a barista or anything like that, all of a sudden you get this authentic word of mouth that is so much more valuable than, I will always say that having 100 people that are bought into you is so much more valuable than having 1,000 people who know who you are but couldn't care less about whether you succeed or fail. You know?
Dude, yes. That is such an underrated concept, because I'm a huge fan of playing the long game as opposed to the short game with quick satisfaction and quick wins. But over a 5, 6, 7 year, window, the long game outperforms and outworks the short game anytime. The long game is just hard because it just takes slow. There are no shortcuts. It's not flashy.
It's not sexy. Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. And so you're just chipping away. But man, the quality and the depth that you build is powerful.
Totally.
And this is again, another like little practical tip. The best thing that you could do as a local cafe owner, one of the great things, maybe not the best, but is to like, if you can provide an exceptional experience that somebody else can tell you about. If you think about it, if you could have 100% of your customers tell one more person about your cafe experience simply because they have just had such a good experience with you, you can double your business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to cost you zero.
Yeah.
Like the magnitude of that, like for some cafe owners, that would make or break their business.
Totally.
That would be like, oh shoot, we're going out of business. And then that would be like, oh no, like we are so in the green, life is good, all this stuff. And it's same thing with content creation. Like I'm so glad neither of us have mentioned the algorithm, because I hate that conversation, because it just puts the blame on, I think, the algorithm, and feels very powerless when it's like, oh no, like you could actually like make good content.
Yeah.
You know, Seth Godin said something. He said that essentially the same concept, but in the creative world, where if you make content that is really impactful to your small selected group of people, and and it's so good that they share it with one person, there's a potential that you can be growing your close community or your audience without the help of the algorithm at all.
Totally.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. 100%. I view it the exact same way. Like, you would rather have people who are bought into you. And again, it doesn't just apply to like social media. For me personally, like I think of content creation from that point of view, but like I think as a business owner, I think as a roaster, I think in any sense of the word, like being able to like invest in people is going to be like the greatest investment you ever make. Drop the mic. Podcast over. End it. We're done. We're done, dude.
100%. Like 100%. I'm so pumped that the natural conversation was led to like, oh no, like you or I, and me running Mirror, or you doing your content creation stuff, at the end of the day is just focused on people, community, and connecting with people, and sharing something beautiful and good with the world. And for you, that's through video. And the crazy thing is now, me realizing your background in like acting, you're just now creating something beautiful for the world. For me, that's like using my video skills to produce this podcast with Sergey usually on the mic, and us roasting coffee. Like that's the means to how we produce something good for the world, for people.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm super excited. Thanks for letting me be here. Have I talked too long?
No, dude, this is phenomenal.
Okay, good. I never like I can be kind of a talker. So
no, this was
great.
Yeah.
I don't want to like go too long.
Yeah, no, this was great. Anything that we didn't touch upon that you'd want us to touch upon, or maybe some things that you want to, some like final words, or something that you're like, oh man, I would love to chat a little bit about. I don't know. I'm just like leaving the floor open for you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, am I allowed to like talk about some of the things I'm working on?
Please.
And, like, would love to lead into.
Please.
So this year for me, if you didn't know, I have officially completed my first full year of being like freelance and being like full-time content creator, which has primarily looked like being, did we just lose light somewhere? I did talk too long, man. Everything's shutting down. So some of the things that like I'm leading to, listener, if you didn't know, this past February, so early February, marked a year of me doing content creation full time and freelance, and it's been a really challenging year. When you do go full time freelance, or you go like full time into your dream business, the natural inclination is to think like, this is going to be successful right off the bat, right?
Yes.
But the first year is always the most challenging because you're like, you have no foundation.
Yes.
You have no foundation, so you have to figure out, like, you have to find your footing.
Yes.
And I have tried to approach this first year with as much, like, I've tried to approach this first year very, like, carefully and tried to be strategic, but obviously strategy changes all the time. But I have like realized how important it is for me to invest into like myself as a brand and as a business. Again, when I talk about like content creation and when I talk about like what I do, I always try to think of it through the lens of like, this is a business. Like investing into myself is a business. And if the business is not reflective of who I am, then I'm doing a bad job showcasing the business, right? Because even when you have Mirror Coffee Roasters, your tagline, you said it's
reflect what's good.
It's like, that is a reflection of you and Serge, you know? It's like, we want to reflect what's good because that's something that we like value within ourselves. So I have recently started to change my mindset about like creating content and about like what I do. Because honestly, like, I don't want to be like just a freelancer who just like lives off of video projects all the time, but I want to be able to like create a brand and create like something special that reflects who I am. So yeah, this year I'll be launching a podcast, which I'm really excited about. It's all about having conversations with people just like this, conversations that hopefully educate and inspire. And this year, the reason I'm even here in Bellingham is because I just want to tell stories. If you're watching the pod, I don't mean to shout anybody else out, but the only reason I'm here is because of Make With Coffee Roasters. And so I'm getting a chance to work with them. But like the dream is to like tell stories. And then this year, the other part of my focus and goal is to invest into people personally. And so that for me means like, I have a lot of people who will message me and be like, dude, I want to create content too. Can you help me create content? And I want to build like a class or a cohort or a group of people who like I can invest into, because there are just things that like I naturally have like learned through this first year that I would love to like teach people about. And there's also a lot of areas that I feel like are like an unfair advantage to me that comes naturally to me that maybe other people just don't know. And so to be able to do that as a part of like a business model for myself, that would be like a dream. So like this whole next year is all about building Jimmy the Barista as a brand, which I'm really excited about. And I'll have to have you on because there's a whole section of me that wants to inspire people who want to like roast. And I know right now Mirror is DTC and wholesale. And there's so many people, especially since COVID, who like are either home roasters, but don't know how to like take that next step, or like they just have a dream to be like roasters at a cafe, their local favorite cafe, who they don't roast coffee, but they're like, I would love to do that at some point. Like my dream is to build a connection point for people. So please follow Jimmy the Barista on socials, and be on the lookout for my YouTube. Trying to be more active there this year.
It's good stuff, you guys.
Thank you.
Like literally, we don't have very many guests on the podcast. We probably will have more, but we choose them wisely, and people who we strongly believe in, who know what they're doing, who we respect and appreciate. So if you've been listening to this podcast, just check it out. I think it's worth it. But Jimmy, dude, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast, making this day absolutely phenomenal, hanging out.
Yeah, it's a dream come true, man.
I know. It's incredible. I'll have to now come down to
Denver. Yeah.
And so hang with you down there and maybe record that podcast.
That'd be awesome.
Whenever.
Man.
So thank you so much again. Yeah,
Do you have a sign off that you and Serge do?
we do.
What's your sign off?
It's reflect what's good.
You say it at the end. Should I? I'll point to Serge.
Okay.
He couldn't be here today.
It's true.
So I don't want to take it from him because that's your thing.
Yeah.
So you say it, and then I'm just going to go, Serge.
Okay. Friends, remember, reflect what's good.
Serge.
Let's go.